All right. This part's not quite as easy. So we had another presenter who was scheduled to speak at Ruby on Rails this year, a guy named David Ryder. He was at the conference last year, and this is, on the second day last year, we ended up having a panel where we talked about a bunch of different stuff, and then it kind of devolved a little bit, and then it ended up becoming a discussion about open source software. So how many of you were here last year? Sorry, I'm doing exactly what you asked me not to. So during the panel last year, near the end, there was a guy sitting over here on the couch who kept asking me, what if your company won't let you do open source software development? And I said, well, if you can't convince your company to change, if you can't change your company, then you need to change your company. And we actually went back and forth on that 3 or 4 times. Does anybody remember that? So that was kind of the start. That was my introduction to David Ryder. So we talked a bit after the panel. We talked for a little bit, planted that seed some more, and I guess I have to give you the end story here as to why we're talking about this in the first place. So David submitted a proposal to Ruby on Rails. We selected his proposal to be selected his talk, and I'd talked to him a little bit and wanted him to talk a little bit about the fact that he had gone from coming out to Ruby on Rails, then going to Mountain West RubyConf, and at the time he was working in St. George, Utah for a software company down there, and then he ended up quitting, moving to Bend, so that he could do more open source software, et cetera, and really follow his passion. So I wanted to have him come and present on this. Unfortunately, I don't actually know the exact date, it was the Monday after the Super Bowl, about 2 a.m. he was at the wrong person's house and was shot and murdered. So this is kind of a memorial for those of us who knew him, whether it was just through the conference or for those who actually worked with him day in and day out at G5, and those of us who just knew him through the tech community here in Bend after he got here. So that's kind of what we're talking about at the moment. So that's the end story. There is a fund set up for him at Chase Bank. If anybody's interested in donating, you can simply go in, tell them you'd like to donate to the David Ryder Fund and do so. He left behind his wife and a 2-year-old son. Anyway, he was an active part of the community. I'm going to let a couple of his coworkers from G5 talk for just a couple more minutes about his passion and what he meant, and then we're going to shift into the lightning talks, and then we'll raise the note or the tone up a few notches. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Stringer. So I work at G5. I'm a Ruby engineer there. I don't want to take up too much of anybody's time. I know most of you didn't know David Ryder, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on a sad topic. And this is a great, happy conference. Everybody's having a good time. I wanted to just talk a little bit more about a few things about David, and I think send a message more on a general level to the Ruby community and just kind of people day-to-day sort of thing. So to follow up on what Kobe said, David Ryder was here last year. You guys might remember him as the guy who, like Kobe said, asked about open source. He was also the guy walking around in a bathing suit and flip-flops for the whole time. I don't know if that rings any bells with anybody, but I remember seeing him the first day and being like, who was that guy? Because it wasn't that warm out. He was a character. So I actually went to Mountain West RubyConf in Salt Lake City, Utah, and Kobe was there and knew that we were looking for new engineers at G5 and was nice enough to make an introduction between David and I. So, and that was my first time really talking to David, and took him out to lunch and kind of gave him the pitch to come to G5. Great company, we support open source, you should really think about moving to Bend, and one thing led to another, and he did, so that was great. And I got to know him pretty well, both inside and outside of work. Passionate guy, passionate about Ruby, passionate about music and being outdoors and family and all these things. So that's all great. I know most of you don't know David, so I won't talk about this stuff anymore. But I think for me, I just wanted to convey to everybody, we're a community. We're all Ruby people, and this was really real for me because I've had family members pass away and such, but this was the guy I sat 20 feet from, and I still see his code every day, and it hit close to home for everybody on our team. We're not that big of a company. I think we have 15 or 20 people total in engineering, and I don't know. It was for me. I guess what I really wanted to say is, you never know what's going to happen. Shit happens, and we lost one of our own, a passionate guy in the community, and I guess treat every day like it's your last, because it's terrible to see David go, and we all miss him a ton. That's it. Thanks.
So I'm the other Chris. I'm Chris Craybill. I'm the CTO at G5. And this is my first time actually talking at a Ruby conference. I've been to about 6 or 7 of them. So pardon my nervousness. This is one of my favorite pictures of David. He embodied a lot of things. But you see about him, he's a family man. He's got a 2-year-old son now. And he loved being outside. So I thought what I would do, and I just sort of did this at lunch, so this is completely impromptu, is sort of tell a little story about myself and what David meant to me and use it in a lightning format talk. So this is something that I did recently. This is me in December of this year. I have a coach, and she does this thing with me. It's called a Wheel of Life. And what I do is I put out, it's like a Trivial Pursuit pie, and I put the things that are important to me on each wedge of the pie. And back in December, my friends were pretty low. I wasn't having a lot of fun. I had a lot of personal growth because I was working with my coach. I was making good money at my job. I was happy with my job, but actually the money was a little bit lower because I was paying for the coach. But for those of you who've ever had to pay a therapist or anybody, you know what I'm talking about. But I wasn't doing a great job with my wife, and this is a really interesting thing that you can apply to your own life and say, well, shoot, maybe something's wrong with this, and what do I do to kind of round myself out a little bit, right? So I looked at that wheel, and I actually looked at it for a long time, and I wanted to thank Jonan because I was sort of in this state of learned helplessness. I felt like I wasn't going to be able to change that. And, I sort of went through the 5 stages of grief that Carrie was talking about earlier today. And, first I was like, wow, this really can't be happening. And then I went to the stage of, why the fuck did this happen? And finally I said, well, this sucks. And I was in that state for a long time. And then finally, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was just like, you know what? I need to make a change. So I did. And I hope you all do too. This is a picture of me. I got a text from my wife earlier today with a lovely picture of my kids. This was my response. And one of the first things I did was I stopped taking myself so seriously. And I think we can all learn that lesson. And so I figured I'd draw my own wheel of life today. I used this beautiful sticker. If you don't want to put it on your laptop, you can use it for your own wheel of life. It makes for a nice little disc. And you can see, I'm not perfect yet, but I've rounded out a lot of the edges. One of the first things I did was take last week and go to Florida. And so my family wheel is a hell of a lot better than it was a long time ago, and I actually got to hang out with my wife on a date in Florida. And, you know, the money wheel's actually a little bit higher because I fired the coach. And also the market's been doing well. But I feel really good about the progress that I'm taking. And so I guess the thing I really wanted to sort of impart on everyone is, you know, take some time to look at your own life, look at your own wheel, and make sure that you're taking care of the things that matter most to you. So, thank you.